Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session. We are very excited to have some very special guests today. As a reminder, your microphone is off, your video is off, and is going to remain this way for this session. But please feel free to share any questions or comments through the chat. Also, this session is being recorded and it's also streamed in Facebook Live. So you will have access to the recording after the session, and please feel free to share this session with anyone that you will think will be interested in this wonderful topic that we are going to discuss today. My name is Elvira Castillo. I'm the advisor in Mexico. I'm the country coordinator for Mexico, for Education USA Mexico. And this is a regional webinar for North America, Central America, and the Caribbean. And we will be talking about the graduate admission interview from the point of view of students that are already in the United States studying and that already have this experience. So we want to welcome, before we welcome our guest, I would like you to please share, and I will need help. I don't know if Jandy or Alfredo, you have the access to the voting poll. I lost the voting poll. So can you help me and confirm that you have access to the vote?
I have launched the polls.
Great, thank you. So please let us know where are you joining us from, if you are in Canada, Mexico, the Caribbean, Central America, or from other place. And Jandy, if you can share the results, that will be great. And I have no access to see the results, but I think the public can see the results.
Sure. So I have shared the results with everyone. Most of our attendees are from Central America, but we do have attendance from other countries from the region as well, the Caribbean, Mexico, and Canada.
Thank you, Jandy. Okay, so I also would like to share very briefly, because I think many of you are already familiar with Education USA. But for those who don't know who we are and what we do, I would like to share that we are a global network of advising centers. We work very close with the US State Department Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. We offer accurate, comprehensive, and current information about the full range of accredited US higher education institutions. We offer access, free access to introductory information on US studies. And you can find also our website, educationusa.state.gov, where you can find more information. And at the end of this presentation, we'll also share with you how you can find your advising center. So we are very happy to have with us a group of students that already did their successful interviews and are studying in the US. So Andrea Hernandez, she is currently studying her Master of Science in Innovation and Venture Development in Arizona State University. She started this fall and she expects to complete her program in December 2022. Then we have Frank Leiva, and Frank is a PhD student in quantitative psychology at the Ohio State University. He also just started his program and he expects to graduate in 2026. Isabel Martinez. She is studying a PhD in biology in the Pennsylvania State University. She also started just this fall, and she expects to graduate in May 2026. And also with us is Joshua Morales. And Joshua is studying his PhD in chemistry and biochemistry in the University of Notre Dame. He also started recently this fall, and he is going to graduate in late 2025 or 2026. Also, I would like to share with you that Andrea is project manager at Global Futures Laboratory at ASU. She completed her bachelor's degree in international business at Instituto Politécnico Nacional in Mexico, and she's the founder of the project GELIM. And I don't know if I say that right, Andrea, but you can correct us later. Frank completed his bachelor's degree in psychology in 2014 and his master's in applied educational research in 2018, both at the University Autónoma de Ciudad Juárez, also in Mexico, where he worked as adjunct instructor in the social work and psychology department. Isabel is a first PhD student at Penn State. She's a marine biologist with a profound interest in coral reefs and a strong commitment with science communication. She did her bachelor's degree at Universidad de Guadalajara and her master's at Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México. She feels privileged to be able to do research and learn about the complexity of living things. She really enjoys a morning bike and a nice strong cup of coffee. And Joshua, he obtained his bachelor's in chemistry in 2020 in the University of Costa Rica. Fortunately, he was one of the recipients of the Opportunity Fund's scholarships by Education USA. It allowed him to apply to several universities in the United States. Currently, he's a chemistry graduate student at Notre Dame, and he's focused on organometallic chemistry. So welcome and thank you for accepting this invitation. I think you have a very nice and interesting experience to share with us. So we are going to start with the first question. In general, how was your application experience to US studies? Isabel, would you like to start?
Hello, everyone. It's nice to be here. Well, my experience in the graduate application process was much similar, like a wheel of fortune of emotions. So I had moments filled with excitement, enthusiasm, and others where I felt really overwhelmed and really tired. It was a time-consuming process. So to avoid getting too overwhelmed, it is extremely helpful to make the time to find out what you are interested in. So I applied for 5 programs in the US: Rutgers University, UC San Diego, Johns Hopkins, Penn State, and UPenn. I got rejected from one, but I was able to be interviewed for Johns Hopkins, UPenn, and Penn State. And well, I want to tell you that the challenges that I found during the whole application experience was, I think, time management. And the challenges for the interviews, I think the scariest part of the interview is like not knowing what to expect. So what questions they are going to ask. So yeah, but overall, it was worth it all the way.
And of course, we will talk about the interview with more depth in a few minutes. Andrea, what about you?
Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be here. I think that, as everybody will say here, maybe, it's a long process to apply for a master or a PhD program. It's not something that you do from 1 month to another. It's a process that sometimes can take years. For me, actually, it took me 2 years to sit down and focus all my mind in my master's. And I won one scholarship, the scholarships of Opportunity Funds with Education USA that helped me to focus all my mind better. But yeah, I think that if you really want this, you need to be patient. Um, as Isabel say, it's very worth it at the end of the day because you're here learning something that you really like. And yeah, I think that the results of this experience of studying a master degree or a PhD program here in the US is amazing. So I think it's worth it. But yeah, work on it. Be passionate about your project, and that's all that I have to say for now.
Thank you, Andrea. Joshua, what would you say? How was your experience in the application process?
Well, hello, everyone. Well, as my peers already stated, the application process is by definition very time consuming and stressful. And you need to do like a lot of essays, standardized tests, etc. But I think that I applied the last year and it was particularly tedious because of the pandemic. And for example, the universities started to ask for a COVID-19 statement, and you don't have like another statement to paste yours. So it was kind of stressful. I applied to 8 universities along the US. I did do 2 interviews and kind of a third one via email. My process, I think that it's different because of the pandemic. For example, I had appointments and the government did lockdowns, so the appointments were canceled. And to reschedule one is difficult because it can take several weeks. So always like you need to plan ahead of, you don't know what can happen. And that was like particularly difficult for the GRE subject since you only can do it like 3 times per year, at least in my country. So it was a process full of uncertainty. Also in the requirements, so the universities eliminated both the GRE and the general and the subject. So it was very, very stressful. And also with the restrictions about the visa, so you need to have like a in-person course to be able to have it and change government and all of that. But overall, it's a very nice process when you see it like from behind.
Thank you. What about you, Frank?
Well, in my experience, well, I applied to 7 universities and I had interviews in 3 of them. One of them had actually more than 5 interviews. And well, my particular experience in this case is that my field, quantitative psychology, is quite a rare field. Not a lot of psychologists say, ooh, statistics, I want to learn more of it. So it was pretty unknown. I knew that I loved the statistics, but I had some trouble understanding what the research was really about. So it's really difficult to make a statement of purpose, much less to handle an interview when you don't really know what the research is actually done with. So that challenge translates into that most of the faculty doesn't expect you to say, I want to do a research on a structural equation modeling. They want to see the passion that you have about this, about statistics and how that translates into psychology. So it's a little bit different from a regular interview that some of other opportunity grantees had. And also we can add the layer of the pandemic, like Joshua mentioned. Although in my case was an advantage because, as I will tell you later, I was able to handle simultaneous interviews and the very same day, thanks to the pandemic.
Okay, I think all of you mentioned that it's a hard process, is time consuming, but it's worth it. So I like this idea, and you were successful in your application process. So we'll go to the next questions we have for you. And this is, how was your interview experience? So we'll start with Frank now.
Right. Well, my interview experience was pretty particular. My first interview was with the University of California at Merced, and it was quite early. It was, I think, a week before Christmas. It was online, of course, and I was met with the entire faculty, the entire department, which since it was like around 5 persons. It was quite intimidating at first, but then I realized by the way they were asking these questions that I was pretty much already in. They kept asking questions like if I had any questions about the program, if there was any way that I could make that program very competitive. And to my fortune, I was able to, they were able to tell me that my application was extremely competitive and they expected me to get more than one acceptance letter. So unlike the rest of my cohort in opportunity, I was able to relax myself of that anxiety of whether I'm going to get accepted or not really early on. So the format was quite different, as I mentioned, because they didn't expect me to have a specific project. They wanted me to talk about my experience teaching statistics, my experience handling data, but no actual projects per se. And that's the same within all the 3 universities that actually interviewed me. Most of these interviews didn't last more than 40 minutes, I guess. However, 2 of these universities, no, actually all of them, had this structure of interview day, where you will be able to meet different faculty members, you will meet the graduate cohort. So one advice that I would like to say right now, because it happened to me in 2 of these interviews days, is spread your questions among different persons. If you ask all of your questions to the first interviewer you have, you'll run out of questions and things will get repetitive, and you'll start, and the conversation can get a little bit dull. Besides that, I guess most of the questions, again, weren't really that hard. Apparently, I was in a good position with these universities. So there wasn't any particular question that made me freak out. I just tried to be myself and not like the grad student that in our minds think that a grad student should look like, but the actual student that I was. So I think that's pretty much my interview experience. It's not really informative. I was quite fortunate to have these kind of interviews where they will say, "We want you," which I was fortunate, but that doesn't give a lot of information for future applicants.
That's great, Frank. I think sharing this experience it's just great. What about you, Joshua? How was your experience in the interviews?
Well, as I said it before, it was on Zoom. Since I wanted to do a PhD in chemistry, and because this field is like very difficult to speak without viewing a molecule or a synthesis pathway, so I did like I prepared a very brief PowerPoint presentation, just 3 slides, and I asked to the professor if I can share my screen very briefly to show you to show him my work. And he gladly said yes. And he was actually impressed because not a lot of people do that, like taking time to do a brief presentation. So it was like very nice because for a moment you have like the power of the presentation. So you are the one that decide like the rest of the interview. So it was very nice. Again, just very brief PowerPoint slides. Like you don't want to feel that you are the one that is like managing the interview, because that's not the idea. But you can, it is not like a presentation per se with you present the 3 slides, but a conversation in each slide with your professor. So he can interrupt you, you can talk, you can explain, he will ask you questions in the middle of the presentation. And that's very nice, because you don't need to like tell him that he needs to imagine the mechanism or something like that, because you have it in the slide. So it is okay to do that in the interview, and they like that. And regarding the time, it is not a correct amount of time for me, because it will not depend on you, but the time of the professor. So I mean, I had one that took like 4 to 5 minutes, and it's in the university that I am currently. So, and I did another one that took like 25-30 minutes, and I didn't uh, get in that university. So it is not like a measurement. And also some universities won't ask you to do an interview. That's okay. And like I said before, I had like kind of one interview, but via email. I don't know why the professor never contact me like with Zoom. So we talk a lot by email. So that also can happen, because maybe he hasn't like he hadn't like the right amount of time sit with me, but that, so yeah, it's very stressful. And but the real thing is that you need to prepare, so practice a lot.
Thank you, Joshua. What about you, Andrea?
Okay, I got 3 interviews and I was accepted in the 3 universities that I had interviewed with. I think that all the universities were very different in the interviews. Um, in the case of Arizona State University, that is the university where I'm studying now, um, well, they asked me a lot about the things that I put on my CV. So they asked me about some projects that I participate. They also asked me which was the reason why I was applying for the program. I think that all the universities want to see your passion for the program. They want to really know that you are going to take advantage of the program and that you will be passionate there. So I think that that's why they're looking for. But for business, they definitely want to see you. They want to know the projects that you are involved with, and they want to know if you want to, if you want to make business later on, or if you want to launch a nonprofit, whatever. And well, that interview lasts like 25 minutes. Normally, one of my professors told me later that they build the questions with the conversation. So normally they don't even have a script. So you need to, I think, uh, that you need to practice, as Joshua said. You need to practice, and But you also, I think that because English is not our native language, we can get nervous sometimes, and it's completely normal. I want to let you know that the professors or the interviewer know that English is not your first language, so they don't expect you to be completely right in your answers or in your structure. They only want to see your interest. As well, I was interviewed by Georgetown. I was also accepted there. The interview was a little bit longer. It was a half an hour. And again, they asked me as well about my projects, about my future projects, and yeah, in general, which was the reason why I was applying to that university. And the last one was the University of Texas. That was a really short one, I have to say. It was like 15 minutes. It was very quickly. They just asked me about my interest, about what else? About my bachelor's program and why I was interested in that university. And I think, yeah, as you can see, there is not a rule. Universities have different methods, and even in the same university, it can be different from one program to another. So just be yourselves and just try to speak as much as you can with your friends and with your family about your masters and about your passion and about your projects. I think that's the best advice I can say.
Great, Andrea. Thank you. What about you, Isabel? How was your experience?
Well, I must say that the interviews were the most useful part of the admission process that helped me choose the program for my PhD. So the interviews like kind of gave me this opportunity to connect and really get a hands-on feel for the graduate programs and also the graduate cohort. So it was also very challenging, as Andrea said because of the language barriers, but yeah, the interviewers know that. So due to COVID restrictions, all interviews were conducted on Zoom. And when I received the invitation from the universities, they asked me to identify like 2 to 4 faculty members I wanted to meet. They confirmed me like 1 week in advance, the names of the professors I was going to interview with. So that gave me a chance to prepare my interview. So the interviews that I attended, which were 3, were kind of informative and also evaluative. So that meant that I was able to ask questions to learn more about the college, but also there was an interview report that I was added to my file and was reviewed along with other materials as well. And specifically for the interviews at Penn State and UPenn, it was they were very similar. So they were individual interviews. I had 4 one-on-one interviews. 3 of them were with faculty members of the Department of Biology. And one of those 3 was an interview with the advisor that I was suggesting to work with. And the 4th person or interviewer was the head of the graduate admissions committee of that department. And these individuals' interview lasted around 30 or 4 minutes each. And overall, the interviews with the faculty were scientific conversations. So I don't know, I think it's a common thing in STEM fields. I wouldn't know in other fields, but at least in mine, it was. They asked me mostly research-oriented questions. So they begin the interview asking me to describe briefly what was the most meaningful research experience that I had, my current research interest. Also, they kind of went a little bit into depth in that. They asked me, okay, so what about the gaps in knowledge that I wanted to fill in that particular area? Why was that field area was attracted to me? And which of the faculty in the department will allow me to pursue this interest? So these are universities that they work, they are very collaborative, and the department is very collaborative. So that part is really important for them. And also the golden question that why do I want to do a PhD and how do I see myself in 10 years? So they kind of want to know what do you want to do with your life? Do you want to go into academia? Do you want to go into industry? So they want to have like a broad sense of it. So rather to drill you with questions, like they often want you to engage in a conversation about interests and passions. And okay, so it was funny because if the professor was familiar with the research, with my research, so the conversation developed more or less naturally with some follow-up questions. But if the professor was not familiar, then I had prepared a few questions to kind of set up a common ground of our research interests. So that was really helpful. And the interview with the head of the admissions committee was a little bit different. So they had prepared specific questions and they actually gave me time to elaborate on them. I had like 5 minutes to elaborate on them. So regarding of a research experience, they asked me to define the hypothesis or the question I wanted to answer, experimental designs, to briefly state the most meaningful results and conclusions I made from them. So it was really challenging. Also, they asked me to describe an academic obstacle which I faced and the strategies that I used to overcome those challenges, and to describe any past activities that I was involved in and that had supported diversity and inclusion. So I think this is very important for the current applicants. So now that diversity, equity, and inclusion are recognized as core values in a lot of institutions, there is kind of a whole section of the admission process that asks you to elaborate on these additional educational experiences you have regarding to leadership, community involvement, or social justice experiences. So yeah, that was practically my experience. I had another experience at John Hopkins, which was a little bit more different. It was a panel. It was intimidating, as Frank mentioned, being in front of 4 or 5 researchers. And they went over like very general and broad questions, like what are your interests? Why do you want to study here? Yeah, but it was more a formal interview.
Okay, thank you. I think all of your answers have something in common, and that's that they want to know about your academic trajectory. They want to know about your future goals. So maybe the format is different. Maybe how long each interview lasts is different. Maybe it's just one person, or maybe it's a panel, but they want to know you. And also, Isabel, I like that you mentioned, it's also an opportunity for you to know the institutions, to see if there is a match. They want to know if you are a match for the university, but you also go to an interview to find if that institution is a best fit for you. So thank you for sharing these wonderful experiences. So we'll go to the next question, and that's, how did you prepare for your interviews? And you mentioned a little bit about this, but maybe how long, how long in advance you knew who will be interviewing you, if you had any expectations or you were surprised? So how did you prepare for your interviews? And we'll start with Joshua.
Hey, yeah, the interview, I think that can be performed because you contacted a professor and he wants to meet you, or because it is a requirement of the university. So it's kind of different in each one. And in both cases, they can ask you questions that you probably already answer in your personal statement or in your NSOP. So it is useful to already have them before the interview. So you probably will have like all the personal questions covered. And be prepared to defend or to talk about your research, because in my case, one of the professor told me like, okay, but your compound is air sensitive, so it is not very useful, and you need to defend your research. They will expect that, because that is what you will do in your PhD. So if you don't have that much, be ready to explain also the reason why you didn't were able to go too much to lab and have like better results. Also, the interviewer of the professor will expect you to have questions about his research and also of the university. So you need to have that questions in advance. Otherwise, it will take a long in the middle of the presentation to think about the possible questions. So make sure that you can ask things that will make the impression that you already know the job. And if you found like voids that like you don't really understand why this professor, for example, in my field, it's working with this particular metal, so you can ask them and they will tell you. And finally, I practice my presentation a lot with a friend that can understand my field, and also with my Education USA advisor. So I can practice in one like the content, and with my Education USA advisor I practice my English. So it's a nice touch to have that. Another possible thing of an interview is that they are like interviewing you not because it is a requirement, but because maybe you have a lower score in your TOEFL than they are asking, and they want to hear you, to see if, because a TOEFL is an exam and it doesn't like say too much. If you, not because you have 120 means that you know how to speak English in a normal day basis. So they want to hear you. So that's why you probably want to practice your pronunciation. And that is because you probably will have a TA role to pay you for your studies. So that's also matters. So again, I practice a lot, but not in all cases you know like the professor or anything like that, like very in advance. For example, one of the professor told me like, okay, let's meet on Zoom in 2 days. And it was like, oh, that's why before you send emails to the professor or something like that, you should be all ready. ready for the interview.
Great, thank you. What about you, Andrea?
I think that I agree with Joshua. I think that you should definitely take advantage of Education USA advisors. I think that most of us and the people that are hearing the presentation, they are close to an Education USA center. So go there and tell them why are you nervous about your interview, and they will always give you resources that are that could be helpful for your interview. And in myself, I work a lot with my advisor. She helped me a lot. Actually, I was trying to remember the questions that she told me. And I think that is very, in general, the three questions are like, what did you do in the past that led you arrive to the point where you are now? The second question is why you have passion for this program now? And what are you going to do with your degree in the future? I think that just answering those three questions, it will help you a lot to have a good interview later on. As well, I ask all my friends and even my family to listen at me. I practice a lot with them. Actually, it's also very good to talk with somebody that his first language is English. In my case, I have some friends here in the US, and I asked them if I could have an interview with them. And they also told me in which parts I could improve, things like that. It's all practice, 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 because you will never know when it's going to be your interview. Most of the universities told me like 2 days prior to the interview. They were like, "Oh, okay, we will meet you in tomorrow or this week. Please let us know if that works for you." So you will never know. You don't know for sure if you are going to arrive to that point on your application. So be prepared. Don't be so anxious, and try to just be yourself.
Thank you, Andrea. What about you, Isabel?
Yeah, well, I think for me it was really helpful to read again your personal statement and your researcher statements. Yeah, that is really helpful. You have to know them a lot. So I think that part was really kind of, well, it helped me kind of to know and define what I wanted to do and why I wanted to do that. So I think it's an advantage that you already have that document if you work it properly. So you already have this idea. And by the time you do the interviews, you have already a big understanding of the program, the university. So I think it's time to prepare specific questions for the interviewers or for the students that you are going to meet. And the specifics are very important because it allows you to engage with the interviewer. So your questions will give your interviewer also insights about what you value and what are your thoughts about the process. So yeah, you already have this general idea. So now be specific. That helped me a lot. So they notified me 1 week before the interview, the persons who were going to interview me. So I had time to go through the website and search for them and try to find similarities of my research or my work with their research interests. So that is really helpful to kind of break up the ice when you are in an awkward silent situation in the interview. So, and of course, these workshops helped me a lot, and the resources from Education USA helped me a lot. It made the difference. It really made a difference. I've heard other friends of mine and tell me, oh, I wish I had your resources when I applied. So it really makes a difference. And also, you're going to have a rough idea of what to expect, but as we mentioned, every interviews are different. And as my companion says, practice with your family, with your friends, practice, because it is not our first language, right? So with the practice, you'll get through it.
Great tips, thank you. What about you, Frank?
Well, and my first interview at GSC Merced, I wasn't prepared at all because they didn't even say the word interview in it. They said, we want to talk with you in 2 days, and then boom, the 4 faculty members and talking about that I was pretty much in. So I didn't have any time to prepare at all. I think the only thing that I will want to tell anyone who's expecting an interview will say that prepare for that really weird question that I didn't expect, which was, what can we do to make our offer better? I didn't know what to say at that time. It was my first offer, after all. So at the time, I said that I was satisfied with what I knew, but I was looking forward to see if there was anything else that wasn't translated in the application portal or the program's website. Besides that, the other 2 universities, well, the other 2 interview days that I have simultaneously, I prepared with plenty of time. It's called interview day, it, almost a month before. And I actually had this master schedule in Excel with both of it, because it was Aldo's interview day. It was like Thursday, Friday, and a little bit of Saturday. So I had to see each program when they had certain events, which were missable because were more general, and which one was one-on-one interviews that I had to be there. Fortunately, there wasn't any overlap, but I kept jumping from both universities' events. And I pretended sometimes that my camera wasn't working or something. So I was able to rest a little bit, but it was a full day that I stayed in front of 2 laptops, 2 webcams, and some snacks. Besides that, I think the only regret that I have is that I wish I was able to connect to the other quant applicants in those other programs, because quantitative psychology, as I mentioned, is a small field. So I would like to know how everyone else is doing if they were accepted in the respective programs during interview day, because in the end of the day, they're going to be my future colleagues.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I know Andrea has to leave very soon, so I'll just ask you to answer these questions very briefly, and we thank you for your time, Andrea. We know you have an appointment, and thank you for letting us know. So can you describe any challenges before or during your interview?
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry because I have to leave, but it was a pleasure to be here. Any challenges? I think that the first, as I said, was the language barrier. Of course, uh, it could be a challenge because it can, when you are not speaking in your own language, you can feel nervous about your English or that you're going to make a mistake or whatever. Well, yeah, I think that you need to relax and try to avoid those fears behind. As well, other challenge that I face, I think, is as well that you will never know which are going to be the questions. So even when you have an overview of which could be those questions, I think that you always have to be prepared for the unknown. So just go ahead and try to do your best. As I said, passion is all there, or is all that they are looking for, because they want to know that you are going to be proud of being part of that university. And that's what all, yeah, I think that that's the main purpose of studying a master program or a PhD, because you are part of a community then. It's going to become part of your family. So try to be yourself, and if that university is going to be for you, all the answers that you give are going to be correct, because you will know when you are accepted that that university is for you. So don't be nervous. It's a process that can be difficult, but as well, it's just part of, I think it's the end of a long process that you have. It's going to be worth it. So don't worry. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you very much. What about you, Isabel?
Well, I think, well, from what I remember, I think the most difficult part was when they told me that I had to describe my background, the background of my topic, in just a few sentences and in limited time, like 5 minutes. So it was really challenging for me trying to summarize all of these experiences that you have. And of course, interviewers don't have like a lot of time, right? They are interviewing a lot of other students. So make sure that you have this paragraph ready beforehand. It is really useful, just like an abstract of your work or your interests and what you want to pursue. So yeah, that was one of the challenges that I faced during the interview.
Thank you. And for you, Joshua, any challenges?
Yeah, before the interview, and this is like very personal, but I tried to apply for a and it was I was very traumatized by the process, because the interviewers sometimes are not nice. And I don't think that it will be the case when you apply for a PhD. But in that moment, they asked me questions that they did know that I've never be able to answer. Like, what is the weight of the NMR magnet that you use? Nobody knows that. So it was a very traumatizing experience, and I was scared from getting a new interview. But again, with practice, you are able to overcome that. And also I mean, the interview is not just for you to sell to the university, but also for the university to sell for you. So if the process is not comfortable and you don't feel good, probably you won't be go there even if you are accepted. So that's also a thing that you might want to take in account, that if you are not feeling comfortable with the professor in an interview, well, will you be in 5 years? So that's a thing to think. And during the interview, obviously the language barrier, but also it's complicated when they ask you personal things, because you are very prepared to talk about your research or the things that you have in your SOP or in your SP. But if you like, what was your favorite chemistry in the high school? So you are not prepared for that. So that kind of like, and probably they do that on purpose to make you feel uncomfortable a little bit and see how you react. But you need to practice also if you can. I don't know, it's weird. You need to practice like how to improvise in those cases. So you will want to have an answer very, very quick, but also it needs to be like not a lie, like it is not the TOEFL. So yeah, that can be a barrier there.
Thank you. And I think, Frank, you already told us about some of the challenges, but I don't know if you can share something else, particular challenge that you had in your interviews.
Yeah, well, a couple of challenges, I guess it will be to actually fight this phenomenon that's called imposter syndrome. I was fortunate to have a good GRE score, a good TOEFL score, and sometimes it felt to me like it was a fluke, like I was really lucky to answer the right answers, and that score wasn't truly what represented me. And so when I had this interview and I didn't actually understand what any researcher was actually doing, I was thinking, how will they pick me? Should I at least try to catch up with what they're doing? It was extremely hard because I couldn't understand a single paper of the research. So when I went to the actual interview, I was completely honest. I didn't say like, I don't understand your research. That will be my goal during my first year of the PhD. However, I know this is something that I love, and I know that is something that it doesn't wear down because I've been teaching these topics for a couple of years now. So I think fighting that was something that kept me on edge during most interviews, but I try to upfront it by being myself. If they don't like me, well, they don't like me. I was actually going to my interviews wearing blue hair. Now I have half and half, but I decided to be completely myself and not pretend to be someone that's wearing like a formal shirt and everything, trying to look like the perfect grad student that in our minds we construct them to be.
Thank you, Frank. That was great. You have to be yourself, and you have to show who you are. And you can also show your weaknesses, and you must recognize what you don't know. You don't know everything, and that's great. Thank you. So we have just a couple of minutes left in our session. So any final thoughts, tips, and recommendations for the audience, Joshua?
Yes, so as almost everything in life, practice before. And if you're not prepared, they will notice. And practice is not just about the content, but also how to speak. So you want to maintain your pace. You don't want to seem like you're nervous or something like that. So for example, you can notice when a professor is new in his role as instructor of a course or not, but not because of the content, because of the connection with the students. So you can practice that, and that is like good for the rest of the interactions with people that you will have in your life. And also, before applying to a program, I will recommend you to send an email to a professor in that you are interested in, not just because you want that person to know you, but also because you want to make sure that he will accept the students or not, etc. So sometimes in the group page, they state that like apply because we are accepting students, but sometimes they don't update the website. So you may want to be sure and take advantage of the opportunity to make notice your background and your CV. So it for me, that's very important because you want to make a connection with the professor or the interviewer.
Thank you. What would be your final thoughts, Frank?
Well, I will have just two important things to mention. The first one is let yourself to be starstruck. I mean, I was able to talk in the review with some of the most prominent researchers in quantitative psychology now, and I wasn't afraid to convey how amazed was to be talking with them. That experience by itself is worth a try, the whole application process. So I think they actually want to see that passion, and being a Star Trek about the research, about the university is something that can be can help you in your interview more than hinders you in trying to pretend that you're totally neutral or something. And finally, I think it will be important that people remember that you are interviewing them as well, and that you should also be very I don't have a better way to put it, to catch the vibe of the professors, because in one of the universities I applied and I was interviewing, everything was fine until I felt a certain vibe from this professor, and I wasn't as excited anymore. And I was happy that eventually they didn't accept me, but it didn't feel as a loss because I will probably reject anyways. So I think it's important to remember that your relationship with your advisor will be important, and you better detect these red flags as soon as possible.
Super, thank you. What about you, Isabel?
Well, at this point, I think every applicant, well, when they are in the interviewing process, at that point, every applicant selected has already demonstrated their potential for graduate work. So if you are in this point, feel empowered, feel really empowered, because you've come like a long run. So and at this point, it is largely about showing the interviewers why you are a good fit, but keep in mind that you are also choosing them, like Joshua and Frank said. In my case, I was very fortunate because the interviewers wanted to learn more about how they were going to assist me in figuring out whether that department was the right place to achieve my goals. So keep in mind of that. And well, you should be prepared to think on the fly, because these conversations are often wide ranging and can easily head in new and creative directions. So be prepared to improvise. And your genuine interest is going to show. So they are going to perceive your grit if you have it. And at the end, I think take your time to prepare, take your time to prepare the whole your whole package for the admission, because it takes a lot of time to really know who are you and why are you doing what you're doing. So this soul searching, it takes time, and it takes time to articulate it. It takes time to review it, and it takes time to edit it. So I think I am not very good at managing my time. So yeah, I think that's the best advice that I can give you, to not rush the process and be able to review it and do it calmly.
Thank you. Thank you again to all of you. Andrea, of course, that she has left, but your experience and sharing with us today was great. We know we are a little over the time that we allowed for this session, so we will just invite Alfredo if we have a couple of questions, and please, at the end of the session, I'm going to share our contact information and the website. So if there is any other questions that didn't get answered, we invite you to contact your advising center, your nearest advising center. So Alfredo, do we have any questions that we can address today?
Yes, Elvira, we have several. Okay, got the first one. Well, I see that all of you had to take either the GRE or the GMAT, but do you consider these scores were tremendously important for your application process and ultimate admission?
Who wants to take that one?
Well, you can
Go for it, Frank. Go for it,
right.
Frank.
In my experience, maybe. I mean, in general, everyone says that it's not absolute the reason, but it can help you compensate, and also can help you to get the scholarships. For example, just for an example, OSU has a fellowship system where they score everything. They will score your research experience, your GPA, your TOEFL score, and your GRE score. And in the case of internationals, and this is something that is trying to be changed overall, not in OSU, but in several universities, they are concerned about grade inflation. So if you get a 4.0 GPA in your country, they don't consider that it's precisely equivalent to the US. So they don't take it as a great indicator of success. So the GRE can help to confirm that it's not just great inflation, but it's actually that you are a really good student. But besides that, if you don't get a good GRE score, I know people who didn't get a good GRE score and are in more prestigious universities than I did. So if you got research on your back, if you have teaching experience, well, that can also make your GRE, if you get a bad or regular score, just go behind.
Thank you, Frank. And we will suggest contacting your advisor to talk about your concerns, because every student have a different profile. Every university will look for different things. The institutions tend to have a holistic process, but Frank says something very important. Maybe it will help you to find a scholarship or to confirm that your profile, but your case may be different to Frank's or Isabel's or Joshua's. So please contact your advisor. Do we have another question, Alfredo, that we can answer today?
Yes. What kind of values did you see that the universities valued the most?
Any volunteers to take that question?
I think that it depends of the university. The university usually has in page in the website, it has like the core values of the university. So pretty much it's the same with different names, but yeah, you need to look there. It depends of the university. None of the admissions are like equal. You need to work in each one separately.
Okay, thank you. One more, maybe, Alfredo?
Okay, give me a moment. Sorry. What do you think makes you to be outstanding during the interviews?
That's a good question.
I'll answer. I'll answer them. Well, in every case, it's different, right? So it is really field dependent, because they expect you to do different. But I can talk about the STEM fields. So they so you really need to have this research experience and be able to talk about it very fluently, or at least that was that thing I perceived during my interviews, and I felt really confident about talking about it. So that was really important for me.
Okay, thank you. And I think Alfredo received more questions, but again, we will invite you to contact your advising center. And here I'm going to share again before I share the website, please remember that Education USA have sessions very frequently, and we have these regional webinars almost every Wednesday, but we also do other sessions, local sessions in your countries. So look for your advising center or advising centers in your country to see what is the offer of the sessions, webinar, workshops, or one-on-one sessions that you can have access to. So for the next Wednesdays, we will have sessions for undergraduate candidates. And just to finish, we want to thank you all the audience that were here today listening to the experience. And thank you for our guests. And thank you also for the Education USA team behind the scenes. And have a good afternoon. Thank you, everyone.